welcome to Wednesday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic. Now, I need to start today by wishing one of our younger viewers a very happy birthday. So, Gabe, I believe you're turning 11 today, and Gabe is the son of Grockles, one of our very clever Discord members, and they often watch Cracking the Cryptic together, which is fantastic to hear. So, Gabe, I really hope you have a super birthday. Many happy returns of the day. Now, what's today's puzzle, I hear you ask? Well, it's by a compiler, one of the most feared compilers on the world stage. It's by Glipperal. I still got to attempt a puzzle that Glipperal created about 3 months ago called Quite a Mouthful, which is apparently the hardest sandwich Sudoku in the history of the world. And Mark says I need to allow at least 2 hours to record a video of me trying to solve that. So I've basically, well, he told me that about 3 months ago. Ever since then, I've been quite frightened by the prospect of that, and I haven't actually done the puzzle, to my shame. So I hope one day I do get to attempt that puzzle, even if the video never sees the light of day. Now, this one is not supposed to be that hard, although it is called Charybdis, which of course is a reference to the Greek myths. Scylla and Charybdis were either Greek monsters or great rocks, weren't they, that crushed things that went through them. Ships, I believe. It doesn't suggest it's the most welcoming of puzzles, but we shall see. It's an ordinary killer Sudoku of all things today, a genre I'm a huge fan of, so it should be fun. Other than that, just to have a look at what we've got going on Patreon, of course. We've got the Wonders of the World Sudoku Hunt. We've got the solution video to that hunt. And in how long? In just a week's time, we have Demono's follow-up puzzle to his Everything is Roggen. This one. Yeah, we've got the sequel puzzle to this, in which all clues were lies, and that is definitely going to be worth checking out. So, yeah, that's going to be April's reward puzzle at the start of next month. And with that, let's get on to the rules. What's Glipperal got in store for us? I will read them to you. We have got normal Sudoku rules apply. In cages, digits must sum to the small clue in the top left corner of the cage, and digits cannot repeat within a cage, so completely normal rules. There are no excuses today. Let's hope this one doesn't take me an hour. The last 2 videos have taken me an hour, well, more than an hour each, it's not really to my shame, it's just the puzzles are really hard, or at least I find them really hard. I am not trying to be slow, I promise you. Anyway, the way to play is to click the link under the video, as always. Now I get to play. Let's get cracking. Let's get cracking. And as so often, I'm scanning this grid, seeing nothing. I'm seeing a 15 cage. That's got 2 options. A 5 cage. There are 2 ways of making 5. A 9 cage has 3 ways of making it in 3 cells. A 21 cage has 3 ways of making it in 3 cells. Everything else looks less constrained than that, and none of these are particularly constrained, so okay, that's tricky. So how do we get started here? Have we got geometry going on? I'm always quite interested now whenever I see 2x2, or especially symmetrical 2x2 arrangements in grids, because obviously Phistomefel would be this arrangement. But there is a variant of Phistomefel where the 2x2s are sort of shifted inwards slightly. But something like that. So it would be saying these cells are the equivalent, I think, of... Whoopsie, not that one. These squares, including the edges. But I'm not seeing any great overlap with cages actually other than the 2x2 cages there. So probably that's not what's required. Good grief. Oh dear, dear, dear. What is the... I would like to at least know how to think about this puzzle. Maybe ones in box 8. So the reason that's caught my attention is this little patch of 19 cages here. You can't put a 1 in any of those squares. So this looks a bit like an empty rectangle type arrangement in box 8 regarding ones. Ones either have to live in row 9 or they have to live in column 6 or both. but they have to be sort of in this either-or state, which is quite interesting. I mean, it would impact the 5 cage as well. If the 1 is in the bottom row, this becomes a 2-3. If the 1 is in column 6, then we get to say bobbins, because there is nothing there. At least I don't think there's anything there. So we get to say bobbins. Bobbins, there, I've said it. Okay, maybe I should check the ones more widely though. Yeah, you can't put 1 in a 19 cage ever. You can't put it in a 21 cage. You can't put it in a 15 cage. One more maybe? No. Okay, so those are the cages you can't put 1 into. So, I mean, this would be a very interesting cell for a 1, wouldn't it? If the 1 was here in row 6, it would force the 9 cage to be 2, 3, 4. No, I'm not actually. I don't actually think that's terribly interesting either. Good grief. We've got stripes in rows 4, 5 and 6. Right, I've got a small piece of logic here, and it uses a secret I sometimes like to pass on to you if I'm in a very good mood. So let's look at box 4 of the grid and ask what these yellow cells add up to. Well, a complete box of a Sudoku will contain all of the digits from 1 to 9 once each. So these squares, if you add them up, you're adding up all the digits from 1 to 9 and you'll get 45. So now have a think about this 21 cage. What would happen if the 21 cage and the 19 cage had no digits in common? Well, then these 3 squares by Sudoku would have to be these 3 squares. So they would add up to 21, those would add up to 19, these would have to add up to 5, and that does not work, because even if I try 1, 2 and 3, they would add up to 6. So that's a little bit. That's going to put something in the 9 cage as well. Yeah, okay, so now we know that there must be at least, well, in fact, there's going to be 1 overlapping cell. It can't be more than 1 for reasons I shall explain. But this 21 cage and this 19 cage have to have a common digit, because otherwise we run into the problem here of these 3 squares adding up to 5. Now, they can't have 2 common digits, because anything that goes into both of these cages has to go in the 9 cage. So if there were 2 common digits, let's say they were there, you'd have to have 2 common digits in the 9 cage. The maximum the purple squares could add up to would be 8, because there's still 1 more digit left to fill in the 9 cage. So that would mean those 2 squares added up to 8, and this would have to equal 13. Now that does not work. So there is exactly 1 common digit in the 21 and the 19 cage. And that digit has to appear in the 9 cage, and that digit has to be at least equal to 4, because the 21 cage can't have less than a 4 in it. Now, I've foreseen a problem here, which is how I notate this. Because I don't know where the repeated digit goes. Maybe I'll just put it in the middle. These purple squares are not, I'm not saying that these 3 digits repeat. I'm saying that there is 1 repeated digit in each of these strings of 3. And the repeated digit has to be at least equal to 4, and it can't be greater than 6, because you can't put 7 and double 1 into a 9 cage. So purples are all 4, 5 and 6. And now we can say there's 1 repeated digit. So whatever goes into the other cells of the 21 cage has to go over in these 3 squares and up here. and can't be in the 11 presumably. Yeah, okay, here we go. Well, at least we've got something to do now. The 21 cage, whatever is not the repeated digit in these three squares, this domino here can't appear in the 19 cage. Otherwise, it's going to appear in the 9 cage as well. We've already looked at that. So 2 of these 3 squares are green. Again, I don't know which ones. That means 2 of these 3 squares are green. I was about to say, and I don't know which ones. And it's true, except I do know these 2 are not green. Because if these 2 were green, they would have a maximum size of 10. Because obviously we can't put 0 in here. And that would mean these 3 squares had a maximum value of 16, which is not 21. There is a knowledge bomb from cracking the cryptic. So this square must be green. And one of these 2 squares is green. I'll make it that one just for the sake of having dominoes. Now, do we know anything else about that? This must be a relatively high digit because, yeah, the 4, 5 and 6, that's the repeated digit, is always the smallest digit in the 21 cage. Because if this is a 4, it's accompanied with 8, 9. If it's a 5, it's accompanied by 7, 9. And if it's a 6, it's accompanied by 7, 8. So this square, which could be this square, but you see what I mean. The square that's green that's in the 11 cage is either 7 or 8, and it's not 9 actually, because if it's 9 it has to have double 1 with it. So this is a 7 or an 8, therefore there's a 1 in the 11 cage, lovely. And this square now is restricted because we know one of these 2 squares is high, and even if it's as low as 7, this square still couldn't be greater than 3. So this is a 1, 2, or a 3. In fact, now it's getting really interesting, isn't it? The fact that there isn't a 1 in the 11 cage, if the 1 is in box 5, it fixes the 9 cage as 2, 3, 4, and the repeated digit as a 4. If the 1 is not in box 5, it forces a 1 in this domino and fixes the 5 cage. Good grief. And this square must be 7, 8, or 9 as well, because it's the other digit that's not... Hang on. It's the other digit that's not... So if this is 6, this is a 7, 8 pair. This is a 7, 8 pair. Does that break that? The answer is... no, it doesn't actually break that. You could still make 19 without a 7 or an 8, because you could do 9, 6 and 4. Oh, okay. What about if that's 4 then? If that's 4, that's 8, 9. This is 8, 9. That would have to be 9. This would have to be 8. Ah, that does break. Right, we can get rid of 4 as the repeated digit, because if this is 4 and this is 4 and this is 4, I have to make this 8 and 9 because these squares will be 8 and 9. And now the highest digit I could put in the 19 cage is a 7, and 7 plus 6 plus 5 is only 18, which is not 19 again. So this is not 4. There is no 4 in the repeated digit. If it's 5, you've got 7, 9 here. You've got 7, 9 here. You've got 9 here. You've got 5 as the repeated digit. No, that's broken, isn't it? If you've got 5... don't think it adds up. If this is 5 and this is a 9-7 pair. I need to make these to add. Oh no, it does add up. Oh, bobbins. It can still use 6-8. I'm so bad at Sudoku. Oh, good grief. Somehow I convinced myself, I think, that this was 15, and the 9, 6, 7, 8. So 7, 8 would be ruled out, 9, 6 would be ruled out. But it's not, it's 14, and that's completely fine. Ah. Okay, sorry. So 5, I think, is possible. You'd have to put the 9 here. You'd have to put the 7 here. No, no, it's not. Forget the 19 cage, it breaks in box 5. Oh, good. Right, look, if this is 5 and this is 5, now we have to make this domino now. Well, this has to be a 9 for sure, and there's definitely a 7 in one of these two squares. Now, what will go with the 7 to make the 11 work? It will have to be a 1 or a 3. Because the other domino in this 11 cage has to add up to 4, so it must be a 1-3 pair. But what goes in those squares? What goes in these two squares? They must be a 1-3 pair, because they've also got to add up to 4, and you'd have too many 1s and 3s in box 5. That is absolutely beautiful. So now, I was about to say I'm going to get digits, but I'm not, because I don't know. I know that the repeated digit now is a 6, but I don't know where it goes. Okay, I know the 9 cage is now 1, 2, 6, actually. So that's 1, 2, 6. Ah, that does give me a digit, doesn't it? Because now I can place the 1. The 1 is definitely here, and that's going to be interesting down there in a minute, I think. We've got... hang on, I've got to be careful here. This is not necessarily the position of the high digit here. The 21 now is 6, 7, and 8. Which means... Yes, which means the 6 is repeated, so this square is a 7 or an 8. This square, obviously I don't know. Oh, hang on, I may not know where it goes, but I do know it's not 8 anymore. Because if this was 8, you'd have to put a 2 into the 11 cage, which you can't do anymore. There's definitely a 2 in the 9 cage. So this is 8, and there is a 7 in here with a 3. Okay, well that at least allows me to get rid of the green highlighting that's, I think, has been almost sitting there waiting for me to make a mistake with it. So now I've got 8, 7 in here. I need to make 19. This is 4, 6, 9. That's the only way that will work. So we get 4, 6 and 9. 8, 3 and 7. 1, 2 and 5 to complete the row. Let's get rid of all the highlighting now, which is a bit of a shame, but it's probably sensible. That's not 1. These squares have got to be 4, 3 and 9. So those squares have got to be 5, 7 and 8, I think. And those have got to be 1, 2 and 3. And these have got to be something else, 4, 5 and 9. Okay, alright, so can we do more now? We can. We can. I'm sure we can do more. I just have to work out where. Let's use the 1. The 1 can't go in the 19 gauge, so the 1 comes down there. That fixes this as a 2, 3 pair. So now, maybe we've got to be careful about where 2 and 3 go in this box. You can't put 2 or 3 there, can you? Oh, no, hang on, you can't put very much here at all. This can't be a 4, 5 pair, because then this would have to be a 10, so there's definitely a 9 in here. So that's not 9. So if this is 9, 4, we need 6. If it's 9, 5... if it's 9, 5, we need 5 in here. You can't do that. So this is a 9, 4 pair, and this square is a 5, and this square is a 6, and we've got more digits going in. That's not 6 anymore. And so now we've got 2, 3 here. We could put one of them, but not two of them in the 19 cage. And if this was a 2, 3 pair, does that break the total for the box? If that's a 2, 3 pair, we'd have... No, that would have to be 15, I think. That looks possible. One here, this would have to be 159, because it couldn't be 168. Not sure. Okay. Oh, now, hang on. We've got a 6, 8 pair here, and a high digit. Here we go. So this 6, 8 pair means you can't put 6 and 8 in this domino, because if you do, you can't put 6, 9 or 7, 8 in the 15 cage. So one of these must be in the 13 cage, but not both of them, because 6 plus 8 is more than 13 already. So there's definitely a 6 or an 8 in here. I don't really have a good way of notating that, but it's true. Only one of them is in. If it's the 8, you've got to go... You can't go 8, 1, 4, so it's 8, 2, 3, which would place a 3 here and give us a 7, 9 here, and we could indulge in bifurcation if we were Mr. Goodliff. If it's a 6 in there, the other two cells have to add up to 7 without using 1, 6, so they could 2, 5 or 3, 4. Oh dear. That looks far more flexible. So one of 6 and 8 go in here. So if this is 7, 8, the 8 pops down into the 13 cage, and the 7 has to live over this side, because you can't put 7 with 8 in a 13 cage. So there would be a 7 here. That's useless. If this was 6, 9, the 6 would pop down here. The 9 would have to be left out of the 13 cage. That would determine those two squares. Again, this feels a bit too look ahead to me, but it's quite interesting. I think there's definitely something going on between these squares. It just doesn't seem to resolve nicely. Let's get rid of the 9 from those cells now. Now 5 goes in the 19 cage. Oh, right, sorry. There is a simple deduction, which I hadn't spotted. 5 cannot go in the 19 cage, because the other two cells in the 19 cage would have to add up to 14 without repeating the 5, so 5, 9 is impossible, and without going 6, 8, because the 6 is already in the box. So the 5 can't go in the 19 cage, so the 5 joins its friend, the 1, at the bottom of the grid. Now that might be important. Maybe. Do maths on the box now. So what have we got here? We've got 19 plus 12 is 31. These squares add up to 14. Bobbins. So you can still just put the 2 and the 3 pair in here with a 9. And that doesn't seem to break the column. So we don't know that there is definitely a 2 or a 3 in here. 14 plus 6 is 20. So these squares have got to add up to 25 to make the column work. So I can see... Well, it's obvious this cannot be a 2-3 pair, because that would we'd have to make this domino add to 20, and no matter how hard I stare at it, that won't work. So this has definitely got... Actually, it's quite interesting. If this is not 6, 7, this domino has to add up to 9, look. Because it's either going to be 2 plus 7, because we can't make it 2 plus 3, or it's going to be 3 plus 6. So 2 plus 7 and 3 plus 6 both are equal to 9. So this domino... Hang on, what was this? 25. So if this is 9, this is 16. Oh, that's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Right, that doesn't work. Because how could this be a 7-9 pair? The answer is it cannot be a 7-9 pair, because what's this square going to be? The answer is 7 or 9. But we know that there's a 6 or an 8 in the 13 cage. And if whether I add 7 or 9 to 6 or 8, I'm already getting to 13 in 2 squares. Or more than 13 in 2 squares, and I've still got 1 square to go. So it's not possible for this to be a 7-9 pair. And if it can't be a 7-9 pair, this can be nothing other than 7 and 6. And we have more digits. So we get a 3. We get... Now there is a 7 in the 19 cage. Now these are 13, so this has to add up to 12, so it's not 6 there. You can't put 6 there, or you'd have to put another 6 there. In fact, you can't put 6 there mostly, because there's already a 6 in the column. Apologies, didn't spot it. So this can't be 5, 7, so this is either 4, 8 or 3, 9. But you're going to have, well, you can't put 9 in there because that's going to go with 6 or an 8 again. So that's not 3. You can put 8 in. No, you can't put 8 in this square, because if you do, that has to be a 2, 3 pair, and there's already a 3 in the column. So that's not 8 either. So that means this is not 4. And we are whittling away at the puzzle. And I haven't taken an hour yet. We've now got... This square is 3 or 4. One of these 2 squares is 6 or 8. So if it's 8, you've got to go 3, 2, which would be very helpful. If it's 6... Oh, if it's 6 in the 13 cage, given this square is a 3 or a 4, the other cell in this cage will be a 3 or a 4. So whether this is 8 or 6, there is always a 3 in the cage. And that is rather important because there is a 3 here. So that is a 3, that is a 9, that's going to fix the 15 cage. The fifth, oh, this is just beautiful setting. It is, honestly, it is just gorgeous. Now this 8 gets pinched into the 13 cage. So this is a 2-8 pair. That gives us the 2, the 1, the 5. We're going to get the 19 cage now because we know this column. This column needs 2, 4 and 8. Therefore, those squares have got to be the other squares, 3, 7 and 9. 3 is known. We can do the 3. We get the 7, 9 pair. That gets the 9 and the 4 done. This column still needs a 6. These 3 squares, therefore, are 4, 5. Yeah, 4, 5 and 7. And that actually looks good in terms of the column. And it's good in terms of the box. That's not a 7. So we're doing nicely. And we've got a big cross in the grid, look. And actually, it's a quite beautiful puzzle, this, in terms of the way you can almost sense how it's being constructed. It's being constructed just out of the idea of these 3 sort of cages combined with this 11 cage. I don't think anything else had an effect in terms of the boxes, or the logic in those middle sections of the grid. And then, once we got a handle on that sort of, yeah, that allowed us, with the benefit of the 19 cage here, to get a handle on this column, which then interacted sort of round here and allowed us to disambiguate several parts of the middle 3 columns. It's just brilliant. And we know absolutely diddly about, so much of this grid. And you can almost sense that now is the time that Glipperl will introduce us to these parts of the grid, and we will try and work out what's going on. That's not a 2. There we go. We can do magnificent logic like that. And we can... got lots of middling digits in the 17 cage. Lots of middling digits in the 17 cage over here. We've got... 2, 3, we've got... this domino is quite low, because I can't put 1, 2 and 3 in those squares. In fact, I can't put 5 in either. These squares have to be a minimum of 4, 6 and 7, I think, which is 17. 17 and 22 is 39. So this domino has a maximum value of 6. Which... do you have to have a 4 here? Yes, you do. Okay, yeah. If there's no 4 in these 3 squares, these 3 squares have a minimum value of 6, 7 and 8, which is 21. 21 and 22 is 43. This would have to be... both of these squares would have to add up to 2. So they'd have to be a double 1, which obviously is impossible. So there is a 4 in here, and that's nice. I can get rid of the 4, 6, 7. I don't know what the triple is, but there's definitely a 4 in one of the squares, and that means that square's an 8. And we have another digit. So maybe we fill in the gaps here. We've got to place 4, 6, 7 and 9. This square is not 4. So if this is not 4, 6, 7, then it has to include a 9. And it's either going to be 19 or 20, isn't it? So if this is 19, 41, this would have to be a 1, 3 pair. If it's 20, oh, you get a 1, 2 pair. Oh, so you always get a 1 here. If this is 4, 6, 7, this is 6 without including 4, so this is 1, 5. Yeah, so this is either 1, 5, 1, 3, or 1, 2. It's definitely a 1. That's not a 1 anymore. 1 in box 3 is not in those squares, so there's a 1 in this domino. 1 is up there. Okay, this is probably an enormous red herring. Okay, sorry. This is either 1, 5, 1, 2, or 1, 3. Oh, right. Okay. Let's have a look instead at column 9. Beautiful. 7, 8 pair. Where does 7 and 8 go in column 9? The answer is not in a lot of spaces. They don't go in those spaces. They don't go in those spaces. And they don't go in cells that have a maximum value of 6. So where does the 7, 8 go? They've got to go in those 2 squares. And in fact, it's even more beautiful than that, because this square cannot be an 8. So these 2 squares are a 7, 8 pair, and that's a 7 and that's an 8, and we are off and running again. 8 goes in here, 7 goes not in there. So now this domino is more restricted than it used to be. This is 11. So this is either 1, 5 or it's 1, 2. 1, 2, 5 triple, therefore. Right, so now that square's restricted, isn't it? I've got a 1, 2, 5 triple in the column, plus a 7 and an 8. So I'm looking for 3, 4. This is a 3 or a 4. And it's definitely a 1 and a 2 over here, because we can't put those in those squares. Oh, so it's like mirror. There's like some sort of symmetry going on between these dominoes. Look, in this row I've got 6, 7, 8 and 9. In this row I had 1, 2 and 3. So I think in this case, because these are being forced to be low, these are forced to being high. So it's the opposite of what's going on down there. So what can we put in here? We could put 1, 2 and 5 in as a maximum, which is 8. Oh. Yeah, well that's it, isn't it? If I don't put 1, 2 and 5 in here, I've broken the puzzle. Because if these don't add up to at least 8, let's imagine they added up to 7. 7 plus 20 is 27. These two squares would have to add up to 18. They'd have to be double 9. That is impossible. So yeah, I think the logic is good. I think this has to be 1, 2, 5. And that is absolutely amazing. That means this square is a 4. This has to be an 8, 9 pair. Therefore, that's not 9. That's not 8. This one is not 9. That's a 6. That's a 4. And so this is absolutely gorgeous, because look, we're sort of working our way around the perimeter of the grid here. This 6 fixes these two squares. Once we fix these two squares, we now know the sum here. This is now 20, 22, that's 42. These have to add up to 3. Get rid of the 5. Place the 5 here. Get rid of the 5s in there. That's now, looks like it might be quite restricted. This column, don't know actually. I think there's a 6 in one of those cells. Yeah, maybe I do look here now, because the 17 cage has got 2 cells in it summing to 3. So these two squares have got to sum up to 4. Yeah, these two squares have to sum up to 14. Well, I can't use 3 or 4 in here then. That's got to be 9. That's got to be 5. That fixes the 5 and the 7. By Sudoku, there's a 7 in one of those two squares. And in one of those two squares. 9 here means we get rid of the 9s here. 9 here means we can do some 9s at the bottom of the grid if we scan down to the bottom, which I know I often forget to do. 9s, 9s, there's a 6-9 pair now in box 3. This square, use the 4 here. This is just a 3. This is a 4. This is a 3. By Sudoku, 3 goes here in box 9. So we know those squares. They are 5, 6 and 8, even if we don't quite know where they go. You can see that can't be 6 and this can't be 5. Pretty sure I'm missing something here. It feels like this is almost, I shouldn't say it, but it does feel like it's almost cracked, doesn't it? Okay, so how do we finish this off? What are we missing here? We are... This column's got 8, 9, 4, 6. Oh, it's the same. It's the same logic. Good grief. Glipperal has outfoxed me a bit here. I think this puzzle is too smart, because look, the 7, 8 pair, the moment I had that thought about column 9, I should have been thinking, what about the 2 and the 3 in column and its effect on column 1? It's the same logic. This 2, 3 pair here, where does it go in the column? There's only 2 squares, and this one is beautiful because it can't be a 3, so that's a 2. 1, 5 pair, this must be a 3. 17 gauge is now... These two have to add up to 14. Look, this can't be 8 because that would put 6 here and it would clash. You can't put double 7 into those squares. So this is 5. This is 9. That feels very redolent of what I've just done a few seconds ago over there. 9 and 7 can go into these squares. 9 and 6 can go into these squares. So 6 is in one of those two cells now. And have we now broken the back of it? Or is it still... Yeah, the 5's giving us a 7 there. That's giving us an 8. By Sudoku, this is an 8. This is an 8. This is a 6. This is a 5. This is a 6. This is a 7. This is a 7. This is an 8. Okay. Let's see if we can just tidy up the ending. We've got... What do we need here? Is it 1 and 5 into these squares? I think so, and there's a 5 there, which is rather nice. So all of these go in. 4 must go here. This little square looks like it's a 7. That fixes the 7 up there. Now what? What are we missing? This 5. 5 and 1 go in. 1 and 2 go in. 2 and 3 go in. 3 by Sudoku is placed. 3 and 6 go in. 6 and 9. 9 and 8. 8 and 2. 2, 2, 1, 1, 4. And this square is a 4. And you click check. Yes. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I loved that. That is so clever. It's so clever. I love the fact that there is a clear... It's like you're following your Hansel and Gretel, and there's, you're following a gingerbread trail, or you're the blackbird pecking it up or something. But Glipperl has led us on a trail here that goes from here to these columns, to these ideas around here, and the fact that these pairs can only appear twice, in 2 positions in those columns. And then sort of this logic around the perimeter of the grid. It's fascinating and wonderful, and I enjoyed it immensely. And thank you so much for watching. I haven't taken an hour today, so a little bit shorter. Still a difficult puzzle, 42 minutes, but a very enjoyable one. And yeah, thank you for watching, and we'll be back later with another edition, Cracking the Cryptic.